What's going on, Bottom Line viewers? It's Mitch here of the Bottom Line View, back with another fantasy football video, the second part of the Bottom Line View fantasy draft kit. Hopefully you're enjoying it so far. The first video, July quarterback rankings. If you haven't already checked that video out, the link will be in the description, as well as at the end of the video for you to check out. So stay right around after this video for the quarterback rankings if you have yet to see it. Also in the draft kit, I'll be having wide receiver, tight end rankings, as well as mock drafts, as well as profiles for individual players in fantasy football this year, and much, much more. So stick around. And because of you guys, I'll also be doing standard rankings as well as PPR rankings. But in this video, it's going to be the top 50 PPR running backs for the 2017 fantasy draft. So obviously I can't talk about every single player. I'm going to do my best to talk a little bit about each and every player. Here we go. The rankings are in order and in tiers. So if you don't know what a tier is, basically I break down the rankings due to tiers. Tiers are just an easier way for me to figure out which players are around the same value in my personal opinion. So you could take my rankings or you don't have to, but it's your fantasy team. But I'm just here to give you the advice, the tips, and the tricks to help you win in fantasy football. So let's start off with tier number one, which are the three most elite fantasy football additions to your team that you could possibly have. In my opinion, these three players should go in the top three picks of your fantasy draft basically every single time, and it doesn't matter the format. If you're in PPR, if you're in standard, these three players should be at the top of your board. David Johnson, Le'Veon Bell, and Ezekiel Elliott. Now I have David Johnson first. The reason why I have David Johnson first instead of Le'Veon Bell is I think he's a little bit safer. He's not going to get suspended as much as Le'Veon Bell. He has less of a track history to get injured. I feel like David Johnson, when you look at this guy, he's built like a machine. It's very difficult to hurt this guy. While we've seen in the past, Le'Veon Bell has had some of that, as well as the fact that I feel like Le'Veon Bell will, of course, be already a top three running back guaranteed in this league pretty much as long as he plays at least most of the season. We saw him get it done in only 12 games last year. So I think Le'Veon Bell will be awesome. Don't get me wrong. I'm just slightly going with David Johnson because I feel like he's the safer option. I also feel like the Arizona Cardinals have less options around him to go to, making David Johnson more of the workhorse player in that regard. In terms of David Johnson is the number one running back and also the number two receiver in Arizona, while Le'Veon Bell has to contend with Antonio Brown and Martavis Bryant and players around him, when David Johnson only really needs to contend with Larry Fitzgerald. So that's my take on that. That's why David Johnson is ahead of Le'Veon Bell, but I won't blame you if Le'Veon Bell is ahead of David Johnson. They're both awesome players. And the reason why I have them both ahead of Ezekiel Elliott is I feel like they have more of an all-around game. They'll give you yards in rushing, they'll give you yards in receiving, and they'll also give you the touchdown numbers, while Ezekiel Elliott is more of the great running back. I mean, he's a great running back. He probably has the best breakaway speed of all of them. He's playing with the best offensive line of all of them, but he doesn't receive the ball quite as well as these two players. He also doesn't really get targeted as much in the passing game. They don't use Zeke the same way that the Cardinals and the Steelers use Bell and use David Johnson. So that's the reason Zeke is third for me. If it was a standard league, I may rank Zeke even first. It just basically depends. You also have to look, you'll see a star next to a Zeke's name. These are the July rankings, so if you're watching this ahead of time, you may already know this by now, but Zeke may be suspended this season, so you have to pay attention to the suspension. If he is suspended, I'll have to and be forced to move him down. Hopefully he's not, and hopefully he's ready to come in third overall for your fantasy teams. Tier number two, I have LeSean McCoy, Devonta Freeman, Melvin Gordon, and Demarco Murray. After McCoy, I really feel like McCoy is the solid fourth choice. He doesn't no longer have to contend with Gillislee taking his goal line touches away from him. He's still going to be awesome. He's one of the best backs in the league, most talented backs. He will receive the ball. He will run the ball. Very shifty, hard to take down, behind a very good run blocking offensive line. They're still going to commit to the run. The Bills aren't a team that passes very much, so LeSean McCoy is a sure bet, number one running back. But After LaShawn McCoy, Devonta Freeman, Melvin Gordon, and Montgomery, they always switch places for me. It really depends on the day. That's why they're in the same tier. To be honest, I kind of have tier 1 with Johnson, Bell, and Zeke. And then I have tier 2 with McCoy. And then I have tier 3 with Freeman, Gordon, and Murray. But just for the sake of the video, I'm going to put them all in the same tier here. Freeman, I really like. I don't think you should be too afraid of Kyle Shanahan leaving this offense alone. Devonta Freeman was great in 2015, and he's actually been the most consistent running back in fantasy football over the past 2 years. He led all running backs in points in 2015, was once again a top 10 back last year. I think he's going to do it again. He's just a very good running back all around. Once again, another guy that can do it all. He doesn't get as many touches as a Bell or a Zeke or a Johnson, but he's still going to get enough touches, and he's very efficient with those touches. He's very good in the passing game, run game. Atlanta uses their running backs very well, and I think Freeman's going to have another good year. He's just entering his prime now, and I expect another very good year from him. Then you have Melvin Gordon, who I'm really, really excited about. A lot of people look at his last season as the breakout season. I'm looking towards this season as the breakout season for Melvin Gordon. He now has Anthony Lynn as his head coach. So that being said, Anthony Lynn, if you know any history about him, everywhere he goes, the running game excels. Last year, the Bills led the NFL as he was the offensive coordinator in rushing. So Melvin Gordon should have some success. He no longer has Danny Woodhead behind him to take away catches and to take away carries. And I think that the Chargers will actually be good and actually be leading games this year, which means Melvin Gordon's going to have even more touches on his hands. Really a fan of Melvin Gordon this year. DeMarco Murray at number 7. I still love DeMarco Murray. I think a lot of people are worried about his age, worried about, his legs, worried about Henry behind him. But you guys need to understand that last year, the only time that Henry actually played very much was when DeMarco Murray was banged up or injured. That was the only time, because DeMarco Murray was consistently, when he was healthy, it was a clear one running back, clear number 2, because DeMarco Murray can do it all. And even if Henry starts to kind of chip away in the carries category, you can't be really concerned about DeMarco Murray because he's a better receiving back than Henry. He showed that last year. He's got a nose for the end zone. I think he has better vision than Henry, and he's just an overall better back in my opinion. He has all the abilities in the world. I don't think you should be concerned about his age because I feel like he still has a few years left after, in Dallas, he never really started as the starting running back until like a couple years into his career. So DeMarco Murray still has a couple years left as a very quality number 1 running back in fantasy. Tier number 3, I have Jordan Howard, Jay Ajayi, Lamar Miller, and Todd Gurley. Now, starting off with Jordan Howard, this is the guy that basically played 12 to 13 games last year as the starter for the Bears and still was second in the league in rushing yards. The great thing about Jordan Howard is he's going to touch the ball. Nobody on Chicago is going to touch the ball nearly as much as Jordan Howard. They are uncomfortable with their quarterback position. They don't know if it's going to be Mike Glennon. They've said it's going to be Mike Glennon or Mitchell Trubisky. Either way, Glennon never really been a full-time good starter in the NFL. And then on the other side of things, Mitchell Trubisky is a rookie. So either way, Jordan Howard's going to be involved. They're going to get him involved more in the passing game this year because I feel like Alshon Jeffrey is now gone. They need someone to pick up the slack. Cameron Meredith is their number 1 receiver. Are they really going to give him the ball a ton? I don't know. So Jordan Howard is the guy. He is the man. He is the workhorse, and everything on offense works through Jordan Howard. So that's a very positive side when drafting Jordan Howard, which makes him almost virtually unbustable unless he is injured, basically. Then you have Jay Ajayi, who is very much the same. I feel like he's going to get a lot of the ball this year. The Dolphins have actually came out. Adam Gase, who's a great coach and a great offensive mind, has come out and said that Jay Ajayi is going to get the ball more in the passing game. They really want to use him in that facet of the game more. This is a guy that ran for 200 yards twice last season in 2 separate games. If you do take away those numbers, though, I think Jay Ajayi does have a slight chance to bust of these top 10 running backs because we only saw it at a few times last year where he was really excellent. I mean, he is only a second-year running back or whatever, a third-year running back now, but I do see the cause for concern if you're going to pick him really high. I would still pick him in the, early second round. I would very much consider it because I think he has huge potential. This is a guy that has potential to be the number one running back in fantasy potentially. So you have to take those chances, especially in a standard league where I think he'll be slightly better than in a PPR. Lamar Miller comes in at number 10, where I think this guy is going to bounce back from last year. A lot of people thought that he was going to be a top 5 running back last year in fantasy, including myself. I looked at the situation in Houston. I knew Houston ran the ball a lot. Lamar Miller was very effective with his touches in Miami. I thought that would correspond to a very good season, but it didn't happen for him. He was a little bit banged up at times. The Houston offense was just in shambles because they had no quarterback that could throw over 10 yards. Brock Osweiler was absolute garbage. Their offensive line was not very good, and Lamar Miller was he was okay. He wasn't a bust by any means. He was still a good running back, but he just wasn't that guy we expected. This year, he's kind of going around like a little bit better than if he was, a little bit better than last year, but like not as high as we thought he would be last year. So he's kind of going in the middle, which I think is very fair. I would draft Lamar Miller somewhere in the late second, early third round. I think he is going to bounce back this year. I still like his talent a lot. He's the guy that can do multiple things. And I think on Houston, they're a team that loves to run the football, and Lamar Miller is going to get a lot of touches. And he doesn't really have anybody behind him. Foreman is there, but he's doing something with the law now, so they don't really know what's going to happen with him. So Lamar Miller is a sure bet to get a lot of touches and a workhorse, and something to look for in your first and second rounds with your running backs is you need to make sure these players are workhorses. You want to draft running backs early that are workhorses, and the next guy that is a workhorse is Todd Gurley. Nobody got the ball more than Todd Gurley last year. The Rams gave him the ball. The thing is, he didn't succeed because his team was absolute trash. And I told everyone before last year, don't draft Todd Gurley high where he's expected to be picked, because he's not going to be good because the Rams are terrible. And I think they're slightly better this year. I mean, they brought in Andrew Whitworth. I think they're Jared Goff at the second year in the system. They have an offensive coach that is a lot better with Sean McVay, who's coming from Washington after having a few successful years there as the OC. So I think Todd Gurley is going to have more creativity on his side with his offense. I think he is going to be somewhere like Lamar Miller, where he's not quite going to meet the expectation of last year of the first or second pick, but he's going to be somewhere in between of last year and, in 2015 when he really exploded. So that's my feelings on Todd Gurley. I wouldn't pick him in the first round, but in the second round, he has too high of a ceiling to really ignore, where if I already have my first pick, and then my second round, I'm like, man, this guy could really turn out to be a top tier running back. I gotta pick him. And that's really my thoughts on Todd Gurley. Tier number 4, Isaiah Crowell, Leonard Fournette, Joe Mixon, and Ty Montgomery. This is the tier of a lot of very high upside guys that kind of have a lot of unknowns. Isaiah Crowell is going to be running behind the best line he's ever ran behind in his entire life, probably. The Browns have one of the best lines I know in the NFL. They signed multiple guys in the offseason to help that position out. I think Isaiah Crowell already had a solid year last year, multiple touchdowns, almost 1,000 yards. If he can up that with more touches that Hugh Jackson said he would get, as well as the fact that the Browns really want to run the football. Isaiah Crowell is kind of that clear-cut running back. Duke Johnson is there for the third down and for the catching. But I think Isaiah Crowell is almost better in a non-PPR format or a standard format than he is in a PPR. But I'd still pick him quite high in a PPR league because I think he has high potential. He's one of these guys could potentially break out due to the line being so good, due to the Hugh Jackson's demand to run the football. So I'm a fan of Isaiah Crowell this year, and I've seen the talent in him. Then after that is Leonard Fournette, who's kind of an unknown due to the fact he's a rookie. Now, a lot of people are hyping him up due to the fact that Ezekiel Elliott was amazing last year as the number 1 running back. I think Leonard Fournette is fairly safe. I don't know if he's going to be amazing or, a huge breakout candidate, but I feel like he's fairly safe because when you're the third or fourth or whatever he was overall pick this past year's draft, you're going to get the football and you're going to get it a lot, as well as the fact in Jacksonville, they don't really have a good quarterback. Blake Bortles has proven himself to be pretty much a disaster there, so they're going to want to run the football and going to want to maintain balance, and as well as the fact that they should probably have a pretty good defense. So you add a running game with a good defense, and as long as Blake Bortles can get it done, the Jags could be decent. But Fournette is going to run the ball. You expect him to get all the touches near the goal line, all the short yardage work. Chris Ivory may help him out, and TJ Yeldon may catch some passes, which Fournette is not very good at. But Leonard Fournette is the man there. He's going to get most of all the opportunity to shine, and that's why I like him. Then Joe Mixon at number 14. Mixon is a guy that I think has huge potential. He is the rookie that I look at that has the most potential of anyone this year to shine. He's on Cincinnati. Yes, the offensive line kind of took a hit in the offseason, but you have Andy Dalton, man. You have AJ Green. They drafted John Ross. They have multiple other receivers in LaFell and Boyd. They have Eifert at tight end. They have a good passing attack. They have a good offensive coach. And they have basically an offense that he can do it all. I mean, he can catch the ball. He can run the ball. He was expected to be a first-round pick until that madness ensued in the offseason. I think Mixon can do it, and I think he can shine big. And I think this is the guy that if you're willing to take a chance on a rookie, this is the guy to target and single out. Jeremy Hill has proven to be kind of not what he was in his rookie season. He hasn't been good. Rex Burkhead was outplaying him last year. Giovanni Bernard is injured early in the year, so Joe Mixon's going to have a very high ceiling going into 2017. Then next you have Ty Montgomery, who I feel a lot of people are overlooking. Yes, he's not really a true running back, but he proved to have very good potential at that position. Now he's going to have a full training camp to learn the position, learn the playbook, and learn the plays. And then you add the fact into the he was a receiver. He's already good in that facet of the game. This guy could be a dual threat PPR monster. Keep an eye out for Ty Montgomery as well, who I'm going to be targeting. Tier number 5, Christian McCaffrey, Carlos Hyde, Danny Woodhead, and Mike Gillislee. Christian McCaffrey, again, just like Leonard Fournette, drafted him very high. The thing about Christian McCaffrey is he's going to be a running back. He's also going to be a slot receiver. He's going to be like the way that the Saints used Reggie Bush early in his career. All the sweep plays, the trick plays, the slot routes, the running back routes out of the backfield, the screens. They're just going to try and get this playmaker the ball, and this is really good for PPR purposes. And for McCaffrey, I would move him down in standard, but in PPR, I would move him somewhere around here, maybe even above, because he's going to be awesome in PPR. He's going to be one of their top receivers as well as one of their top runners, has true potential in PPR formats. At number 17, Carlos Hyde. A lot of people are down on Hyde, but I look at him joining the forces with Mike Shanahan, one of the best, if not the best, offensive coach in the NFL. And I think we have to think back, right? Carlos Hyde was awesome last year. Yes, he gets injured occasionally, but Carlos Hyde was amazing last year after, contact. He broke a ton of tackles last year, and he was the 49ers' focus on their offense. This year, they're not going to change that much. Carlos Hyde's still going to be that guy. They're still going to add that rookie running back into the fold occasionally, but Hyde is going to be the Devonta Freeman to the rookies Tevin Coleman. He's going to be the main dude there. He's going to get most of the touches. No, he's not going to catch a ton of passes, but he's going to score touchdowns, he's going to get yards, and he's going to get the ball because the 49ers are going to want to establish the run and run the football. And then you have Danny Woodhead, who's being extremely overlooked once again every single damn year. He gets injured occasionally, and it happens, but every year he plays, he's freaking phenomenal as a PPR running back. The Baltimore Ravens lost Kyle Juszczyk, who was their number one fullback/running back receiver last year. They had Danny Woodhead to replace that. He's going to be the third down back, and he might even become the starter due to the fact Terrence West and Kenneth Dixon's suspended. Terrence West isn't very good. So Baltimore throws the ball a lot, which they threw the ball the most over the past 2 seasons. They also throw it a lot to the running back position. Add that into the fact that Danny Woodhead is one of the best running back receivers in the league. Joe Flacco's been talking about him before training camp on how he's great in pass protection and great at running routes. The math simply adds up to Danny Woodhead being a big part of Baltimore and being a big part of their offense. Danny Woodhead, PPR sleeper. Then next you have Mike Gillislee and the last guy in tier 5. Mike Gillislee has the true potential to be even better than Legarrette Blount was last year. He might not get 18 touchdowns, but I wouldn't be surprised if he got somewhere between 10 and 15 due to the fact that the Patriots are going to score a ton of points and somebody's going to have to score them. It's not always going to be Gronk. It's not always going to be Cooks. It's going to be Gillislee on the goal line. No team is more generous to their running back on the goal line than the Patriots. They always hand the ball off on the 1-yard line. He broke more long runs than Johnson and Bell. He has the true skill set, power, and speed combo to be a big-time running back in this league. Tier number 6 is the tier where I start to say, I'm not a huge fan. Guys like Marshawn, Lynch, CJ Anderson, Spencer Ware, and Mark Ingram have a lot of question marks. I think Mark Ingram's the best bet out of all these guys. I still think that he is the true lead back in New Orleans, even though Adrian Peterson is there. I think Mark Ingram can just do more things, and at this stage of his career, he's just a better blend of speed and power. Adrian Peterson was probably the best blend of speed and power of all time, but Mark Ingram, if you watched him last year, he has aggressive running style. He has great power. He has good speed. Definitely showed the breakaway speed last year. He can catch the football very under the radar in that regard, and I think he's going to score some touchdowns. Adrian Peterson may take away that part of his game a little bit, but Ingram is going to grab the football. He's going to be the receiving back. He's going to be the dual threat that they need. Then you have CJ Anderson, Marshawn Lynch, and Spencer Ware. CJ Anderson and Spencer Ware in the same kind of boat. But to me, I like CJ Anderson more. You look at what the Broncos did last year without CJ Anderson, and they were garbage running the football. They couldn't get anything done offensively. They had no explosion. Yes, they added Jamal Charles, but CJ Anderson is their main back. He's their power back. He's their goal line back. And I think he's their lead back. Don't worry about Devin Booker. He sucks. They added pretty good offensive lineman and Ronald Leary to the guard position this year. I think their offensive line is going to be better. So I think CJ Anderson's the better bet. I'm not a huge fan of Spencer Ware this year. I just don't see him as a very talented running back. They also added Kareem Hunt in the offseason. I'm just not really sold. I don't think, he's going to be a safe bet for you occasionally, but I just don't think he gives you any upside. Marshawn Lynch, I don't get the hype coming to Oakland. Yes, he's going to score touchdowns. He definitely is. He's on Oakland, a high-scoring team, but he's too old. Seattle, when he played for Seattle the last year, he was not very good. A lot of people forget about that. Yes, he's going to score touchdowns. Standard, he would be up on this list. But in PPR, he's not going to catch any passes. I don't get it. He doesn't have that big of an upside to me unless he turns into Marshawn Lynch 2013. I don't really see it. So that's Ingram, Anderson, Lynch, Ware. Tier number 7, Amir Abdullah, Frank Gore, Bilal, Powell, Eddie Lacy, and Theo Riddick. Amir Abdullah is one of these players that I'm going to target in my drafts because I think he has a huge ceiling. Not only can he run the football, and he's shown that before, but he can also catch the football, which I think hurts my Theo Riddick ranking where I have him at 28, where maybe if he was the only running back there, I would have him somewhere near in the top 15, to be honest with you, because Theo Riddick is a great receiving running back. But the thing about Abdullah is he can do it both and he can do it all, and he's a better runner of the football. We saw it in week number 1. They kind of had a fair balance, but Abdullah was the guy with more explosion in the run game. I think he has a lot of potential. He has good quickness and vision, and I think he might be a breakout this year. Frank Gore is just Mr. Consistent. He's going for his 13th 1,000-yard season. He's going to try his ass off to get it again. He's with the Colts. He's going to score touchdowns. He's the only consistent running back presence there, and the people in Indianapolis love him and trust him. Then Bilal Powell at 26. I think as the season goes on, he might not initially get a huge spark like he did last year. He's going to slowly chip away at Forte's carries and catches as Forte slows down a lot throughout the season, and he's going to become a very reliable option for you in fantasy, especially in PPR where he's a great receiving back. He's very good after the catch, very hard to take down. Number 27 is Eddie Lacy. The reason I have him at 27 is I think he's the true starter for Seattle. He's going to get all the goal line touches. He's a big back that can run strong behind that offensive line. And Seattle loves to run the rock. So that's why I have Eddie Lacy at 27. Tier number 8, 29 is Dalvin Cook. 30 is Tevin Coleman. 31 is Doug Martin. And 32 is Adrian Peterson. I already gave you my thoughts on Adrian Peterson. I just don't think he's the same player. Very much like Marshawn Lynch. I'm not buying the hype. Yes, he might give you a couple great games here and there, or he might give you couple touchdown games, but I don't see him being very consistent for you on a regular basis. Dalvin Cook is the guy in this group I think could have huge breakout potential depending on how much he gets the ball in Minnesota. This is a guy that you could take a flyer on and maybe be like, if you're going for a guy with big potential, I would pick Dalvin Cook. Tevin Coleman, he's going to get his fair share of the carries and the catches. I think one thing he does do slightly better than Freeman is catch the football from like a wide receiver position. They very much like to use him in that regard. At least Kyle Shanahan did. If they continue that, then he's going to be successful in PPR. And Doug Martin at 31, he has a 3-game suspension, but if he can return to 2015 form, this is going to be an offense that is going to be very scary with Mike Evans, Deshaun Jackson, and Jameis Winston. And then you throw in a good Doug Martin, where he's been good every second year of his career. Maybe worth it for Doug Martin, but you'll have to wait 3 games. Tier number 9, Paul Perkins, Duke Johnson, Legarrette, Blount, Robert Kelly, Latavius Murray, Matt Forte, and Jonathan Stewart. Paul Perkins is the young gun here in this group that I think could be the workhorse for the Giants. The Giants aren't a very good running team, nor do they care to run it a lot, but Paul Perkins is going to be that main guy. No more Rashad Jennings. He's going to be there, and I think he really performed when he was called upon last year. I'm a fan of Paul Perkins, especially where he is going in drafts. Duke Johnson is the receiving back for Cleveland. I think he's going to, appear a lot. He goes way under the radar for as many catches as he gets per year. So be aware of Duke Johnson. Legarrette, Blount, and Robert Kelly are in similar situations. They're both the power backs for their offenses. I think Blount will be slightly better due to the fact that the Eagles seem to, they're going to put the ball in his chest and they're going to let him run it, especially after the successful year he had last year. He's a guy that always scores a ton of touchdowns. I expect him to do that again this year. Not 18, but maybe somewhere around 8 to 10. Robert Kelly, same thing. Latavius Murray and Matt Forte, these are both veteran running backs that are going to get their fair share and probably the first shot at their offensive running back number 1 carries and duties. So that just by itself puts them high. And Jonathan Stewart, kind of in the same mold as Forte and Murray. Stewart's going to still be that guy in Carolina. I think he's extremely underrated in drafts. He's still going to be the number 1 power running back, goal line back, and chain mover for the running back position. I think he's going to be getting more carries than Christian McCaffrey because just due to the fact that Christian McCaffrey is going to also be a receiver. So Stewart's still going to carry the load, at least until he gets hurt, if he does. Then you have tier 10 with guys like CJ Prosise, James White, Terrence West, Kenneth Dixon, Jeremy White, Samaje Perine, Jamal Charles, Derrick Henry, Kareem Hunt, Darren Sproles, and Joe Williams. The guys that stick out to me there, CJ Prosise has a ton of potential. If something slips up with Eddie Lacy and he somehow becomes the starting running back, look out because I think he has huge potential. I really like his passing game chops, and he showed a lot of flair last year, especially against that game against New England. A lot of athletic ability. Reminds me a little bit of David Johnson, and he could have that potential. James White's going to catch passes, simple as that. Terrence West and Kenneth Dixon, they're both going to contend for the Baltimore starting job. Terrence West will get the first shot, but I wouldn't be surprised if Danny Woodhead outplayed both of these guys. Kenneth Dixon is the more talented of the two of them. I think Kenneth Dixon is still suspended, and I'm not sure if by the time he comes back that someone else will have his job. But he might be worth the flyer at the end of your draft just because he is the guy that is the preferred starter in Baltimore. Jeremy Hill is a guy that I don't like this year. That's why he's ranked so low, especially in PPR formats. He's just not been good. He wasn't good last year. I don't expect him to be good this year, especially with Joe Mixon in the mix, who I think is the far better, more talented player. Samaje Perine has the ability to take over for Rob Kelly in the backfield for Washington. He can do more than Rob Kelly. He's more versatile. Yes, Rob Kelly is bigger, but I think P. Ryan has that potential. Jamal Charles, we'll see if he has anything left in the tank. Derrick Henry, he's still a great handcuff and probably the true handcuff that I would draft. If I had Murray, I'd be looking to draft Henry due to the fact that if Henry gets the chance and if Murray is hurt, Henry is going to be a top back. Hunt could be the starting running back for Kansas City if Spencer Ware slips up. Darren Sproles is still going to catch passes, very much like James White. And at number 50, Joe Williams, the back that's going to be the tandem, the Tevin Coleman to Carlos Hyde, in the fact that Carlos Hyde is the Devonta Freeman in Atlanta and in San Fran with the Kyle Shanahan offense. Also, other guys to keep an eye out for: Alvin Kamara of New Orleans, Jamal Williams of Green Bay, Jalen Richard and DeAndre Washington of Oakland, Ryan Matthews wherever he may play, if that's Philadelphia or somewhere else, Dion Lewis for New England, which I think a lot of people are underestimating, and Giovanni Bernard, even though he'll be injured at the beginning of the season. So those are the top 50 PPR running backs of 2017. Hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and hope you are enjoying the Bottom Line View Fantasy Football Draft Kit for 2017. Let me know in the comments section what you thought of the PPR rankings and also what you want to see in terms of fantasy football content on the channel. It's Mitch of the Bottom Line View. Hope you enjoyed, and deuces.